Greetings, Light Tribe, Janine, Palmer here, Spirit, Silver Moon, for Harmony, Energy, Healing, Standing Holy, Hierophant, Sacred Sessions. Talk about esoteric things. So it becomes very interesting when we do become a true seeker, when we do actually delve in and study many things from many different sources. And it doesn't have to be for the idea of changing a belief system, okay, but adding to our knowledge base. So sometimes things that we discover and share, we do that in discussion. We share it not because we're trying to convert anyone to anything or convince anyone of anything. It's not an exercise in being right or attempting to be right. It's an exercise in learning or remembering. And it's interesting when you can have these types of deep conversations with people who are open to have them, who aren't in the constant defense mode where they're trying to deflect anything you say because they're afraid that it's going to interfere with their belief system, what they've adopted, what gives them comfort, whether it's true or not. I don't know. And so I was talking to a friend of mine today, and some people will bring up the term 144,000, and some people may or may not know what it really means. Okay, so what I'm going to share here today is comes from limited knowledge and perception or perspective about things that are of limited knowledge, perception or perspective. And I'm going to share something from an author who I think is very good, Diana Cooper. And this is going to be kind of deep for some people. Some people it won't be. Some people have studied. Some people are open. Some people are interested. Some people are gathering other bits and pieces of the puzzle, whatever that is to the individual, whatever they recognize. Okay, for other people it's going to be woo, okay, that sounds pretty woo-woo or loopy or rainbows and unicorns and things like that. However, if a person goes on a journey of learning about energy healing, learning more about what energy is, not the limited information that certain groups, like religious groups, will tell you this little story that has a little bit of fear, it has a little bit of this, and has this supposed answer, and has gross misinterpretation as well. But people have this little box, and they think it's a comfort zone, and they don't want to step out of that. And they feel very controlled by that, and sometimes they are that, oh, I can't study anything other than this, and I can't really understand it the way, any other way than my preacher might tell me to understand it, because it is up to interpretation. And English versions of certain scriptures are misinterpreted because they're mistranslated. Some people don't know that. Some people don't want to know that. They don't want to hear it. And so this video probably isn't for them. But Diana Cooper has a book on ascension. This is an older copy called A Little Light on Ascension, but her new one is called A New Light on Ascension. And I'm going to talk about the monad. So our bodies are energy. Everything is energy. And it's not just our physical body and our mind. Okay, there's emotional, mental, spiritual, physical. So there's the soul and the spirit. Some people don't believe that because some people feel like they have to have truth. And there are things that are not understood and not meant to be understood. And there are things that were shared from mystery schools back in the day that was sacred knowledge only to be shared with initiates who were ready to receive that information. Okay, so even in this day and age, there are people who are not ready to receive the information, and that's okay. But I want to talk about a couple different things, but first I'm going to read this part about the monad by Diana Cooper. So she says, in the beginning was the Om, the sound of creation, which has been translated as the word. Every culture has its own remarkably similar myth of creation, and each myth contains the essence of truth. This is how I understand the story of creation. The Creator is pure love and light, omnipotent and all-wise, yet pure love has nothing to test itself against. You cannot practice unconditional love, for instance, when you are surrounded by unconditionally loving people. It is too easy. There is no test, and you cannot grow without facing challenges. Without darkness, light cannot compare itself. So the Creator wanted to expand and experience. He, she, very important right there, created 12 universes and then sent out billions of sparks of his, her own energy, each with a special mission in order to experience. These original sparks are called monads. They are of an incredible brilliance and light, a wonderful vibration of love. The plan is that these monads will return to the Godhead when their mission is accomplished, rather like children returning to the family home to share wisdom and experiences and so enrich the family. However, the monads in turn needed to experience and grow in order to fulfill their missions. So they each sent out 12 souls. These are what we know as our soul or higher self. Then the souls decided to expand and experience, each sending out 12 extensions, stepping down the vibration so that denser matter could be experienced. You are one of those soul extensions. So where we originate from, we have to step down to come into matter, okay? So this means that, for instance, one aspect of your soul might be in Saturn, another in Venus, a couple in the Pleiades. Some of your total energy might be resting back in the soul or be in between incarnations, but you will all be psychically connected. Some souls even decided to send emissaries into the free will zone of the universes to experience dense physical matter, which meant forgetting their origins. A truly frightening and dangerous undertaking with great penalties for failure and wonderful rewards for success. This meant sending extensions or aspects of the soul to Earth. Many came here and got themselves stuck deeper and deeper in density. Some reincarnated thousands of times in their efforts to free themselves from darkness with which they had become deeply impregnated. Oh, and some religious people are probably going to be up in arms on, oh, no, there is no such thing as reincarnation. However, it's in the Bible. Study biblical scholars, they'll show you where it is. There are places where reincarnation was absolutely believed in the old days, and we've gotten away from that. Okay. At this time of expansion, more enlightened ones are incarnating to help with the Great Awakening. Some souls and monads are sending several of their personalities here. So there may be other aspects of your soul or monad here on Earth now. You have 11 soul brothers and sisters somewhere in the galaxies to whom you are closely linked, while there are 144 of you altogether from your monad. Okay, so, and it's not good or okay for them to be drawing from your energy, which does sometimes happen. She says, when you have passed your third initiation, and you may well have done if you are reading this book, you link with your soul or higher self. Then you are guided by your monad and are working on a much higher vibration. At the fourth initiation, you merge with your monad. The monad is sometimes known as the I Am Presence or the Father in Heaven. The fifth dimension is about love, equality, and cooperation. Your soul group ascends together, so you cannot ascend until all the others are ready. Ascension is not about individuals forging ahead. It is about soul families, members of your monad, and soul groups, groups of like vibration people moving forward together. We do not know who is of our soul group, so that person we despise or dislike may be the key to all our moving forward. Freely help and accept everyone. In many cases, one of a higher vibration will willingly lead a whole team of people up the ascension ladder. Cooperation is the name of the game for ascension. So that is by Diana Cooper. I've shared that with many people over the years. There's a lot of fabulous information in this book, more of which I will probably share in another video shortly. I want to talk about the Antakarana next in another video. Okay, so in my studies, I studied Intro to the New Testament. I went back to college for that. World religions, just different classes to help me gain deeper understanding. Where you learn about textual criticism, how they go back to the oldest scriptures that we have to see how they compare to what we have now. And how they changed, because as one of the scholars said, man's fingerprints are all over it. They know where stuff is missing, okay, in some of the scriptures where it's actually been removed. There's a lot you can learn if you're open enough to study, and it doesn't change your connection with God or Christ or whatever you love or believe in. But it might change your outlook on what you believe or thought you believed, because some of it's inaccurate or incomplete. So Edgar Cayce has a book, The Story of Jesus, and I know some people go, "Oh no, I can't listen to that." How are we supposed to learn and become true seekers if we're not open to what other people know? Because God works in mysterious ways. God works through people that you might not recognize. Okay, so in this book, he's talking about the beginning Genesis, okay, imports and purposes when Adam first walked in the garden. So there's a couple highlighted areas here I'm going to read. These spirit entities or souls came and began playing at creation, projecting themselves into the material earth as thought forms, into the very rocks and trees, coexisting within various mineral and life forms, both animal and vegetable. Here, the souls eventually became so enmeshed or hardened in the material diversions and creations of their own making that they ultimately lost their conscious identity of being creatures or creations of God. And you know how some people say that man has made God in his image? The next part says, the sons of man, other souls, because he talks about, I didn't go too much into this, but he talks about like the sons of God or the daughters of the Lord or the sons of man or the daughters of humanity. Okay, that there's different lines of humanity, and then there's different lines of let's just say angelic creation. What I mean by that is they each have different jobs or roles, which is called a hierarchy, but it's not that anyone is higher than, or it's not like that. It's about what steps itself down from source, okay, to come into lower vibrational levels for whatever the work is that they're doing. So this one says, that I highlighted, says, the sons of man, other souls, not trapped in the material earth, were aware of this situation and chose to enter the earth plane in order to aid the entities who had lost their identity and awareness of the Creator. The second wave of souls became known as the sons of God and were led into the earth by the entity known as the Master Jesus. Okay, accordingly, I'm skipping around here. The sons of God set themselves to working at creation also, in accord with divine guidance, and fashioned and evolved the flesh bodies, which were intended to be channels for man's eventual release from his material being. This was done by thought form projection through the glandular centers of the higher developed species of primates that were chosen at the most as the most advantageous of beings inhabiting the earth. So, you know, some people may or may not want to agree with that, and that's not what this video is about. It is about how humanity came to be here and what the purpose is, and about the stuckness of some of it, and about beings who come here to help mankind get unstuck. Do they come as prophets? Do they come as messengers? Do they come as healers? Are they typically recognized by the masses? No, probably not. Okay, so it's about misunderstandings, really. It's about incompleteness. There are things that are incomplete and misunderstood. So as far as 144,000, I guess some religious groups think that only 144,000 beings are going to be saved if they're worthy. And other people think that the 144,000 are the beings that are already here doing the work for God to help people return to that. Okay, that it's not something that's going to be like determined or chosen later. That already happened. It's already happening. Okay, but it's down to interpretation of whatever it is. So we all have our roles here, and maybe we all awaken in divine timing or not, and maybe it's by choice and circumstance. And sometimes it's when we really get dragged through hellacious situations, where we get cracked open and we get drawn towards what we feel is important, is what I want to say, but like where our priorities change. So we start to see things from different perspectives, and we start to really feel what's important for us to be doing, like a calling, something that we're drawn to from the level of our soul, heart and soul, to do work for the greater good, for the collective here. What ignites that in us? So that's different for each person. And how we understand things is different for each person too. So some people go through things, like a friend of mine was saying, like if people, they struggle through life and maybe they end up in prison, and maybe they find out about a particular religion, find God there, but through a particular religion, because the religions point to God. They are not God, but they point to God. And they get wrapped up in that because that was a saving grace for them. And they're so like focused on a particular limited perception of what it is, and they fight to defend it. They're not open to conversations about learning anything deeper about anything else, which might lead them to deeper parts of themselves. And the other thing is, in my shamanic training, I learned about soul loss, which is fragments of the soul. So when we go through something extremely traumatic, part of our soul actually leaves to protect us. And that's an incompleteness. There's parts of ourselves that we need to bring back, get back, invite back. But we have to do the healing first. Okay, if we're in a place of stuckness, resistance, fear, anger, hatred, grief, sadness, closed offness, whatever you want to call it, then it's harder for that to happen, and probably doesn't happen until we really start shedding skins and shells, to where we do the healing for the different things that caused us to either have bad experiences, to get in trouble, to learn something else, to be directed to a particular religion, to be redirected away from that particular religion. When something's just not resonating with the soul, because we're becoming wiser, because we're remembering our divine origins, and some religions keep us separated from that. Okay, so when we go on these healing journeys, and it's usually after we've been through suffering or whatever our perception of that is, this is when we start to rise out of these lower places of density and areas that aren't nice to be in. But to have those parts of ourselves come back to ourselves, because it's safe for that to happen. And some people also think with the, on a spiritual path, it's about, and this is talked about in scripture, but not understood in exactly this way, is for the reuniting of the spirit and the soul, because there's things that on this lower level that have been separated and are separate, and there's things that work to keep it that way, namely religion and politics. So sometimes we have to move away from religions to get closer to God, but that's up to the individual. So that's just a little bit of information to be shared here about understanding, misunderstanding, interpretation, misinterpretation, translation, mistranslation, because it's rampant, and it has been for millennia. But truth is in us. And so when we open and we shed the old, and we open to grace and love and healing, we will recognize what is truth to our soul.